I personally have had Chinese resellers buy my product, take my molds, mold my design, and then relaunch my same product on Amazon for a tenth of the price using my images. Remember when Etsy felt like a magical place where you could list any item with poor SEO, any image, and you would make a bunch of sales, or put $1 in Etsy ads and make $300 back on that $1 spend? Well, I can confidently say that Etsy has changed a lot. And these changes over, the last decade, 2 decades, I want to say, since the early 2000s, have upset a lot of people. I've been selling on Etsy since 2018. I'm still an active seller. I sell physical handmade goods and hybrid, some goods with a production partner. And even in this smaller data sample of time, which I know a lot of people have been selling way longer than me, I've also myself seen a lot of change. Since then, print on demand has skyrocketed. People are making, very manufactured goods, drop shipping goods, or even really super AI made products. And this has upset a lot of people of what the foundation of Etsy was built on, which was originally built for handmade sellers, where when you bought from the platform, you knew that a physical hand touched that product in ways made with love and passion and care. And while a lot of that still does exist, it is just becoming more and more far and few between. And so the goal for this video is not to just talk about all the resentment and all the negativity around the change, but also for you or us as a community to gain perspective and to really understand at the core what change means in business. Right. I just want to cut in here. I was rewatching my footage and I want to give some more perspective about what we're talking about here in this video today. And unfortunately, I might actually get some backlash for saying this. I have seen countless of Etsy rant videos all over YouTube of people, normally older sellers, just complaining about Etsy and how they're failing their customers. And while I also have my own reservations, and while those people's feelings are valid, it's definitely, you're allowed to have your own opinion about the platform. Unfortunately, for the end consumer, it's not really doing anything positive for you, especially because all these videos aren't actually providing an alternate solution or an alternative to this Etsy pandemic, right? I've been selling on Etsy, like I said, since 2018. It is still my number one selling platform. And I've attempted to sell on pretty much every single third-party selling platform except for Temu, Walmart, and Alibaba. And yeah, Etsy has still continued to serve me, but that didn't come with me just sitting around and twiddling my thumbs and expecting that change was never going to happen. I think one thing that this community forgets is exactly what I just said, is that when you decide that I'm going to launch an Etsy storefront, whether it's the goal is to become a full-time income or a side hustle or just a small business and you want to keep it a small business, when you put your hand up, you are consenting to exactly that, to the risks, the potential risks and reward that come with owning a business. And a part of that risk, it's just the nature of doing business. I don't care what industry you decide to go into, a business has risk, especially in this low barrier of entry business space that is Etsy, where virtually there's no great upfront cost, right? Like if you wanted to start a food truck or a boutique, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars of upfront investment. Luckily on Etsy, there's not that large of an investment and you can see almost just as good of returns if you play your cards right, if you really, really put in the work. And when that happens, right, when there is such a low barrier to entry, right, that means that that marketplace or that sales channel might be volatile. And volatile means that industry is subject to change. But again, every industry that you start a business in has that risk that it can change. And what makes people really upset is exactly that, because change in business is exactly what it sounds like. It's hard. It can be really, really hard, right? Changing your business that once worked and once served you to fit a new market or new times or new technology is very hard. It's your job as a business owner to learn how to become a problem solver, right? My business has seen growth year over year over year on Etsy, but that has not come with us not changing what we're doing, reiterating, right? Figuring out better ways to make our products, better ways to get our prices down, but still maintain quality and how we ethically source our raw materials. And if you listen to any big entrepreneur, anyone that has done anything significant in business, they will tell you the same thing, right? Choosing not to grow, adapt, and change and iterate on your business at all times, by the very nature, is choosing a slow death of your business. The question that you need to ask yourself is, what can I actually control? What can I do? With all of that being said, let's continue to gain some more perspective, because I'm not making this video to just rant or say that, you're not working hard enough, because that's not what the video is about. It's about realizing what opportunity lies when you overcome that mental barrier that it's too hard, it's too saturated, you can't do it. Because the reality is you can do anything. And I've proven this to myself over and over again. You can literally achieve anything, no matter how saturated a marketplace, if you're willing to go through and go to the lengths that other people don't want to go to. And that's just, again, that is the reality of business. And so it's meant to inspire and push you to push yourself to really learn how to solve problems. Sometimes I think that large companies get really painted as these evil villains of the world. And I personally just don't take that stance. Sure, the bigger the company gets, right, the higher the stakes become. One thing that we have to remember is that Etsy is also a business. All of a sudden, your revenue doubled or tripled or quadrupled, right? I think all of us can confidently say that we would like that, right? You would then have to adjust your processes, maybe the space that you rent, right? You would then have a new set of problems that you would have to deal with to address that new traffic. And that happens at every level in business. And the bigger your business gets, the bigger the problems also get that you have to solve. And so again, I'm not defending Etsy and saying that they've made all of the best decisions, but I think a lot of people just look at big corporations as like the evil villains of the world. And really all we're doing is just shaming them for being really good business owners and doing, $10,000 a month versus doing $200,000 a month in sales. It's a very different operation with a different set of problems when you have that much traffic coming to your business. And you can only solve so many problems in a given month and a given year. And I have yet to be proven wrong on a better sales channel for my specific needs, which is I don't like doing a lot of content creation on social media, right? I like to just post products and get sales and run some ads. So let's rewind a little bit. In 2005, Etsy started built off of a community basis, and they built a super strong community around hand makers. And it really, what it is today, it was built off the back of these hand makers, right? In 2015, Etsy went public, and this is when we saw increases in fees, just a lot of changes that were seemingly unwanted by sellers just to, meet the needs of the new stakeholders of the pressure of being a publicly traded company. The biggest thing here is the fees, right? So you have a lot of fees inside of Etsy. So you have a 6.5% selling fee. You have a 20% listing fee every single time you have a transaction. You have a payment processing fee, which is, by the way, something that you can't avoid. If you're going to sell on Shopify, if you're going to sell physical goods, if you're going to process credit cards, you can't avoid a payment processing fee, right? This is not exclusive to Etsy, which is about 3% and 25 cents per transaction. You have to pay that 6.5% selling fee on top of shipping that you collect from your customers. And if you're going to run Etsy ads, you have marketing fees that you have to pay for. And Etsy gets a lot of bad rap for Etsy selling fees. However, my challenge to most of the people that complain about this is show me an alternative that sends you the same amount of traffic for that same amount of cost. There's something in business called cost per acquisition, and this is your cost to acquire a customer. And so on Etsy, you have two forms of ways that you can get traffic. You can get organic traffic, which is free, or you can go into the Etsy Ads tab and pay for better positions for your listings to be pushed to the top. And in general, from somebody that has sold on Amazon, Wayfair, Faire, and Shopify, TikTok Shop, and Instagram Shop, I've sold on every single platform. These fees to acquire a customer is not only either just as inexpensive or cheaper, but it's also easier than any other platform to acquire a customer. So a lot of times when people complain about it, they just don't actually have perspective because they don't realize what their other options are, right? And so if you want to be competitive, Etsy is a business, right? It's paid to play. And that is a part of marketing your business. I don't care if you run real estate firm, a land flipping business, you have a marketing cost that's built into your business model. And e-commerce is no different. And so when I look at my cost per acquisition on my Etsy versus my Shopify store, the cost for me to run ads on Google and influencers and Facebook and Instagram is always at least double the cost per acquisition on the Etsy platform itself. Etsy ads are probably the number one thing that people complain about, especially when it comes to offsite ads. Offsite ads, if you have sold over $10,000 in 1 year, your Etsy offsite ads fee is about 12%. And these are ads that are getting shown to on partner platforms like Google Shopping campaigns, right? And these are 12% flat rate per sale. If you get a sale, you pay 12% of your sale price. If you have done less than $10,000 a year on Etsy ads, then that fee is 15%. So it's a little bit higher. But again, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, that's so expensive. But if you opened up a Google Shopping ads, or when you type something in Google and the product shows up at the top in a sponsored position, if you tried to run that same ad to your product yourself, you would not be paying 12 or 15% cost per acquisition. You would be paying double, if not triple, if not 5 times the amount. The reason why you get to pay so little is because the Etsy platform is running your ads on your behalf and probably spending millions and millions of dollars on Google Shopping ads for you. So you don't even have to run the ads for you, which if you were paying a marketing agency to run those same ads for your Shopify store, you would not only have to pay for the ads, but you would have to pay an agency to run those ads for you. So again, the cost per acquisition is a fraction of what it would be if you had to actually run the ads yourself. Okay, so the next thing that Etsy sellers are really upset about is all the resellers. So people that are just posting things from Alibaba or AliExpress and basically just posting it on Etsy. Now, this is a slippery slope, and this is something that is new and a part of the industry, but you just can't change it, right? So there's 2 parts of this. So I personally have had Chinese resellers buy my product, take my molds, mold my design, and then relaunch my same product on Amazon for a tenth of the price using my images. So that is one thing that happens, but that is a product of you being successful and having a product that sells very well. And that is going to happen, right? That is something that, in light of gaining perspective, is a part of the industry. In every industry in business, no matter what it is, again, if you're flipping land, if you're doing Airbnb, if you're trying to start a brick and mortar store, there's things that are annoyances in the day-to-day of business. And this is something that is unfortunately an annoyance. And it's something that you have to deal with, and just accept it, but not let it eat up your whole identity and your brain energy, because that energy is better spent into launching new products and being creative. So unfortunately, this is a part of the process. Now, if you think that, you have a competitor that is actually just reselling products that are straight off Alibaba and they're even using the same images from Alibaba, you could potentially report it if somehow you can prove that it actually wasn't their product first. I don't know how that would happen. You can look at the first review of the product and see how old the listing is on Alibaba. I don't know how you would do it, but you are allowed to report people that are doing wrong on the platform if you see it. But one of the things, if we're trying to shed light on this in a positive note, right? One of the things that you can do if you are an actual handmade seller and is actually an increased value proposition for your store is you can tell that story in your marketing. So in your follow-up images, you can put a video of you waving to the camera, showing how you sew your goods or show how you make your goods, right? And actually put a face to the brand. So then that buyer knows that you're not just a reseller of Amazon products. You're actually a handmade product. You can tell that story, and that story of you actually hand making your good is a price justification for your product to cost more money because it's actually a handmade product. One of my friends, she sells really nice mala necklaces and she hand makes everything. Sure, you can find a bunch of knockoffs from Alibaba selling for $12 where hers are $120, but because she hand makes the products, she can showcase that process and build that relationship and put her face to the brand and show people that she's actually a true handmade seller. You can even do this in print on demand, right? If you actually design your own products, you can show yourself drawing and designing and you're a true artisan behind your work. Not everything on Etsy is a race to the bottom with having the lowest price. If you can outmarket your competition with more beautiful imagery, with that storytelling, with your video, right? Those are justifications of a higher perceived value of product. And guys, of course, if you have been watching my channel for a while, if you've been an Etsy seller that has been on the platform for a while and you currently today do not have your Etsy ads budget set to the max, yielding you more profit, then you personally, no offense, have not even touched the potential for your store. The way that I see Etsy is you grow in 2 ways. And if you are a seasoned seller that has been selling on Etsy for years and years and years, that means that you know how to make listings that sell. So that means if you have not even explored Etsy ads yet, then you have not even explored the potential of the profit that you could be making in your shop, because a store that is spent not investing in marketing on Etsy and a shop that is putting their budgets to the max and trying to get it to $1,000 spend per day, those are two completely different stores competing on two completely different playing fields in terms of sales, in terms of revenue, in terms of profit. In the worst case we've seen, running Etsy ads is going to, at minimum, 2x your revenue and increase your profit by 20%, right? So in this case, right, we were interviewing the Cutting It Close channel, which he did $900,000 in one calendar year on Etsy in 2024, I want to say, last year. And we ran the numbers without Etsy ads. His revenue would have dropped to only $400,000 and his profit would have dropped over $100,000. So he's making more profit and more revenue and getting more reviews and more conversions because of his Etsy ads. In my own shop, we ran the numbers. And if we did not spend $43,000 on Etsy ads in 1 year, right, we would have had a minimum profit loss of $34,000 profit. That's just profit. That's not even revenue, right? And we've run these case studies over and over and over again. So if you, again, are somebody that has not touched Etsy ads yet, make sure you click the link in the description and watch our entire full free training on Etsy ads. Again, guys, this video was not to be that Etsy is over, right? Etsy is still an amazing sales channel. And again, hopefully you gain some perspective, because to date, I still don't know of a better sales channel, right? If you know of any that is giving you an equal or more amount of traffic for the amount of work that it costs, then make sure you comment those platforms down below, because I'm actually pretty interested. All right, guys, I will see you in the next video.